guys. Today I would like to talk about Pride Month. I think, at least going forward, if conservative boycotts are a thing that's going to happen, if we're in the business of taking away, our patronage to certain organizations because of their political views, it's really time to just boycott Pride Month in general. I think going forward, it would be a much better place and a much better world if our politics were not involved with corporations. Likely not going to happen, but at least for people that dislike the status quo of, hyper actualized media, of degenerate Western perversion, sinful media in general. I think it might be a lot better going forward if we, slow down, and if we simply just stop using products which support pride in any way, shape, or form. And I know that's a hard thing to do and a hard thing to say, but, I'm not sure where the line is, right? Because if they have like a pride flag on their Twitter or whatever, is that reason enough to get rid of the corporation? If they have an event in game, is that good enough reason to boycott them? And it really makes you think, doesn't it? Where is the line? I think openly marketing towards things like what Target did, I think that's probably the most logical place to draw the line. Is it's not so much if they're, acknowledging these people exist, right? Because they're allowed to acknowledge all sorts of different people existing or market specifically towards them. Like, let's be clear here. If RuneScape releases, some promotional image with an opie, like anime girl, whatever, obviously they're marketing towards a certain demographic there as well and acknowledging they exist. So in reality, should we be at the point where simply just acknowledging Pride Month exists is big enough for you to stop using it as a product? And I don't think we're at that stage quite yet. I think the problem is when it's, when they're marketing towards things which are severely deviant, at least sexually and prophetically, one could say. And I think that's where you have to, just say this is too far gone. It's time to take a step back and remove this from our national consensus. So, I think Target is a good example of where it stops, and I think posting a pride flag on Twitter is a good idea of where, you might be overreacting if you boycott a company over that. I could be wrong. You might have to boycott them over everything, period. Like, I've already made my views on the community or the alliance very clear, and they're not positive views, let's be clear about that as well. But I am a realist, and corporations are obviously going to appeal to everyone, and in the modern day, because of how politics has become the new religion, it's impossible really to not take a side in these wagers. So corporations are in a delicate space where they're going to have to play both sides. And I do wonder going forward if corporations as entities are even going to really exist, because with AI and ChatGPT and a lot of these other factors, I wonder if going forward we're going to hit such a point in individualist society where large-scale corporations, except for the most basic of things like, Walmart or whatever, are just going to completely disappear entirely. Like just wholesale goods transfers, things that, at least some nerd with a computer can't do. And, like a good example of that is like media, right? Because, achoo! I sneezed. Because if you just look, like, there are media personalities that get more viewers than entire media networks on very prestigious events, like, election debates here in the state. Like, independent media now can get more viewers than even the biggest mainstream sources. So going forward, it wouldn't surprise me if it's entirely possible that, like, a lot of these social woes and these boycott campaigns end up being useless as these corporations just fail to, individuals just simply making better products. And there may be a place in time where that comes true, where corporations themselves are just killed by the individual. And that's a comforting thought. That's definitely some hopium for the future. And I think it's going to be true in like the internet space, like video games, like a lot of these other things. You know, eventually you're going to have to get to a point where you have to just accept that regular people are simply more efficient and do things better than these large-scale corporations ever could hope to. So going forward, at least I feel like, you know, a lot of the solutions to pride and all these other issues are just modern day schisms that are going to disappear, and they'll be something that people look back on and mock these corporations and the people that ran them for. And sure, there might be new and unique like threats to these corporations, and certainly the threat of a boycott is enough to maybe make them deter from doing the more extreme forms of activism, which, you know, would be at least somewhat ideal, but I don't know how realistic a lot of this is, or know how likely it is that a lot of this is going to go forward and actually work out like that. But it is an interesting topic to think about, right? When you get right down deep into it, more so than just the generic, you know, if, you know, I'm on the political right, so everything the left does is bad. It's more so when you examine the underlying causes and ways to make these issues go away, it becomes this sort of perplexing game where you're wondering how far people need to be pushed and where are the lines going to end up. Where is the new Overton window going to be, for instance? And yeah. So and obviously I think the final solution to this issue is just naturally people getting to the point where they themselves say that, you know, I am not interested in anything with this sort of iconography associated with it, right? And once a certain critical threshold of people do that, then it stops. But, you know, as far as actually going about affecting change in that way, it might not, by the time something like that happens, like regular individuals might already overtake corporations in relevancy, and so then it'll be down to some sort of new battlefront where this won't even matter, which hopefully is the safest outcome. Like, I can very easily see a future in which, you know, like a lot of these huge media conglomerates, for instance, go under just because of, you know, some independent content creators are much too popular to make things equal, or, you know, a lot of these, like, you know, game developers are simply overtaken by, you know, either private servers or just indie developers, and that through the evolution of technology, like, the smaller individuals are being able to compete more and more with these larger corporations. And as the playing field levels out, the actual best content will be all that remains at the end of the day, right? So going forward, I don't think it's all that weird of an idea to say that, you know, like, Jagex, for instance, gets overtaken by a private server simply because of, you know, the views and ideas they hold, and I wouldn't be against something like that happening, right? I'm just sitting on the sidelines and waiting for the fireworks currently, though, so I'm pretty excited to see how things develop in that regard. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, because to me it's an interesting topic going forward. It's like, where are the lines? And it's not really clear to me that there are any specific lines. I think that because of how fast everything is shifting, it's really impossible to say. It's impossible to know what you're allowed to say these days, even. It's impossible to know what, you know, other people are allowed to say about you or say in any social context. There is no more really social boundaries like we used to have, where, you know, the acceptable decorum now is expanded to a point where it's pretty much impossible to tell what is alright and what is not alright, you know? So realistically, going forward, it might be best to just, you know, let things be as they may, and then, you know, just ruthlessly mock everything you disagree with until it's knocked down into oblivion. And, you know, since we live at least in a somewhat free nation, not a completely free nation anymore, but somewhat free, you know, mockery is still on the table, at least. And, you know, going forward, you absolutely must mock the people you are not allowed to mock. They should be the main target you focus your mockery on, because they deserve it. Like, those that you're not allowed to criticize are, you know, the ones with socio-political power in the world, and they're precisely because they're the ones you're not allowed to criticize. They are the ones you should be criticizing. And that includes, like, you know, all of these, alliance people, all these minority people, etc. And that's specifically another benefit of being a racist and being all of these isms that they tell you you are. Like, not a problem. And using that power that they've bestowed upon you to, relentlessly mock them is the way of the future, I think, and is how you're going to turn the tide of these battles. And if you're one of those LDHD people, please kindly remember that the best version of yourself is the version that overcomes whatever mental disease you're currently afflicted with and lives a normal and happy life, or as normal and happy life as humanly possible. So seek help, get over it. Everyone has their own different struggles, and the story of you that overcomes whatever degenerate shenanigans you're currently involved in is going to be the more interesting version. And with that, have a great day.